can ensure the survival of your nuclear forces and thus deter a catastrophic first strike by simply moving your nukes underwater. Enter the USS George Washington, the first ballistic missile submarine with a payload of 16 freedom-bringing thermonuclear ballistic missiles. The George Washington could launch devastation deep into the Soviet Union, and her stealth features made it almost impossible to detect, even just miles off a hostile coastline. The Soviets had actually beaten the U.S. to the development of submarine-launched nuclear weapons, but they lacked a ballistic missile submarine with the payload of the Washington. Further, they had yet to successfully launch a missile from under the water, leaving any Soviet sub in serious danger of being destroyed, as it attempted to launch its weapons from the surface. The George Washington, however, could fire its entire payload while completely submerged, making it the first nuclear assassin. The George Washington was the weapon that made the Soviets tremble in fear, knowing that they could face immediate nuclear annihilation with nothing more than mere minutes' warning. The next weapon on this list, though, was the most terrifying thing American infantry had faced since World War II, AK-47. It's the weapon so iconic it doesn't need an introduction. 75 million have been built since it was first designed in 1945. It's tough, reliable, and deadly. It's the Soviet AK-47. The U.S. wouldn't even know of its existence until 1953, when an as-yet unnamed CIA agent cracked the veil of Soviet. Secrecy to smuggle out detailed drawings of an AK-47. The Soviet Union was focused on keeping this revenue and at first only issued it to even then only experienced veterans. New recruits were absolutely, quote, forbidden to come close, end quote, to the top secret AK-47. The weapon was an absolute game changer, as the U.S. would quickly come to find out. It allowed for the firing rate of a submachine gun with the range and lethality of a standard battle rifle. It would switch between semi and automatic fire. Infantrymen equipped with an AK-47 could deliver accurate long-range fire or suppress an enemy position with fully automatic fire. Despite being inaccurate at long ranges, it was so good that even U.S. Special Forces wanted it, and they went to great lengths to get it. The need for a new American rifle became truly apparent in Vietnam. When the U.S. first went toe-to-toe with the AK-47, it got absolutely trounced. The M16 was quickly produced and sent to the front line. The weapon suffered from a long development cycle and hordes of issues until it was finally perfected. Meanwhile, U.S. Spec Ops units began arming themselves with captured AK-47, impressed with the capabilities of the enemy's own rifle over their American counterparts. As an added bonus, U.S. Special Forces using AK-47s would often confuse enemy troops, believing they were accidentally under fire from friendly forces. The AK-47 would end up in the hands of revolutionaries around the world, and had the U.S. ever gone to war against the Soviet Union in the first half of the Cold War, American infantrymen would have found themselves completely outgunned on the battlefield. In the skies, however, the U.S. operated what would become known as the largest distributor of arms in the world. It was what the F-35 struggled. Ability to perform air superiority, air defense suppression, reconnaissance, interdiction, close air support, and fleet defense missions. There was little the F-4 couldn't do, and it did all of those things extremely well. Developed and maintained by McDonnell Aircraft, the F-4 Phantom saw service with the U.S. Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps. It was America's frontline fighter in the skies during Vietnam, where it returned its nickname as the world's leading distributor of MiG-21s. The MiG-21 was more maneuverable. The Phantom had greater power and a much deadlier armament, carrying up to 4 times the missiles of the 2-missile loadout in the MiG-21. Early in the war, American pilot casualties were high, but this was due to a complete lack of preparation by the U.S. military for dogfighting. The problem was solved with the creation of the Navy's Top Gun School and the addition of a cannon to the Phantom to supplement its missile firepower. However, the Phantom would truly prove its worth during Operation Bull, a bold American attempt to lure out and destroy the Vietnamese Air Force. The brainchild of American double ace Colonel Robin Olds, who who earned his chops in the deadly skies over Europe in World War II. Operation Bolo saw a flight of F-4s flying in track with the characteristics of the notoriously outperformed F-105 Thunder Chief. Thunder Chiefs were notoriously poor fighter bombers who were eventually pulled from active service due to their astronomical loss ratio. They were easy targets for Vietnamese pilots, and the Vietnamese were always looking for an opportunity to knock more Americans out of the sky. As MiGs accelerated to intercept what looked like a flight of clunky F-105s, they were surprised to break cloud cover and realize they were facing F-4 Phantoms. In the engagement that followed, 7 MiGs would be destroyed without the loss of a single F-4, and the Vietnamese Air Force was effectively grounded for several months. Had the U.S. and Soviet Union gone to war, Soviet pilots would have found themselves hard-pressed to deal with that heavily armed and powerful F-4 Phantom. But on the ground, the U.S. forces were incredible at the sight of one of the most iconic tanks ever built, the T-55 main battle tank. It's believed that when drawing up plans for the defeat of Nazi Germany by overwhelming the Germans with waves of infantry, Joseph Stalin remarked, "Quantity has a quality all its own." This would certainly prove to be the ethos of the Soviet military for the majority of the Cold War, and best represented by the most produced main battle tank in history. Designs for what would become the T-55 were already in place during the Second World War, but as manufacturing of the badly needed T-34 was already in full swing across the country, industry could not be halted for the introduction of a new tank. Shortly after the war, however, the Soviet military began to receive the T-54 tank, which featured a large caliber main gun, better armor, and a greater cross-country performance. At the time, there was little doubt that the Soviets operated the best tank. With the likelihood of having to operate on a nuclear battlefield increasing by the day, the Soviet Union badly needed a tank that could operate in the immediate vicinity of a nuclear blast. The T-54 was found to be survivable at a minimum distance of 300 meters from the epicenter of a nuclear blast, though the crew itself could only survive at least 700 meters away. How the Soviets figured this out exactly is probably best left unexplained. A series of modifications to the T-54 led to the T-55. The Soviet Union was capable of fighting a modern nuclear conflict. Within 0.3 seconds of detecting gamma radiation, the tank's NBC systems would kick into effect to protect the crew, allowing them to continue the fight even as the world burned and nuclear hellfire around them. The T-55 was a capable, though not extraordinary tank. It even featured a notorious weak point in its thinner-than-normal rear armor, which had been sacrificed into the weight of additional equipment elsewhere. However, what made the T-55 strike fear into the hearts of American generals was the sheer numbers fielded by the Warsaw Pact forces, with as many as 100,000 built since its inception. After Soviet military observers witnessed America's overwhelming victories in the First Gulf War, they remarked to Soviet leadership that the only way to stop the U.S. armor advance was with nuclear weapons. However, long before this, NATO knew that its only hope of stopping waves of Soviet T-55s from sweeping across Europe was the use of its own nuclear weapons. The Soviets had the numbers when it came to tanks, but the British responded with a Chieftain tank that could easily take on a dozen or more Soviet teams. Chieftain main battle tank. In the 60s, Britain was tasked with defending the northern German fleet against a potential Soviet invasion, and this was going up against endless waves of cheap Soviet T-55s, but Britain wouldn't field nearly as large a tank force as either the Soviet Union or even their American allies. The solution? Build a better tank than either of the two. The successor to the Centurion main battle tank, the British Chieftain featured a small, very capable design, which greatly reduced its cross-section versus contemporary tanks. With thicker armor than the Centurion and a more powerful engine, the Chieftain was more survivable and had a greater range than its predecessor, and could withstand much more punishment than any European, American, or Soviet tank. Its armor included an average of 60 millimeters more protection than any Soviet or American tank, and it the lack of maneuverability. However, when you can swap body blows with a dozen enemy tanks at a time, agility matters for little.
Sorry guys, my first time
Versus the American 105mm gun and the Soviet 115mm gun. The Chieftain packed a punch so hard that it could cripple an enemy tank with just one hit. Contemporaries joked that the Chieftain was in effect a fortress. Not very fast, not very agile, but incredibly tough, and with a deadly cannon. While the T-55 and later models had the advantage of numbers, pressed to break a unit of well-disciplined and well-trained British tankers operating Chieftain tanks. However, even these mighty tanks would have a hard go at the battlefield, saturated with its next deadliest weapon of the Cold War, Soviet 1938 132mm towed howitzer. The Soviet military had a simple adage: if the enemy is proving difficult to defeat, you're simply not exploding them enough. Cheap and easy to produce, simple to operate, and with devastating results on the battlefield, there's a little Soviet military planners did love about their artillery, which explained why they fielded some of the largest artillery forces in history, with a high-explosive shells at a rate of 5 a minute. The 122mm howitzer was everything a Soviet general loved about military hardware. It made fascist invaders go kaput with incredible accuracy and precision. Employed to great effect during the later stages of World War II, the M1938 became the most numerous artillery piece of the Soviet military, with tens of thousands of them used to defeat the Germans at the Battle of Kursk, and 13,000 of them deployed to the city of Stalingrad. Production continued after the war with the Soviet military. Artillery element of the anti-tank round, the M1938 quickly became a tank killer, with its able to be completely depressed to take on waves of advancing enemy tanks. An absolute nightmare for NATO military planners, the sheer number of howitzers employed by the Soviet Union made crushing a Soviet attack a difficult task indeed. Now go watch Deadliest Weapons of World War III, or click on this other video instead. Today, El Chapo spends 23 hours of every day in a cell. He's escaped from 2 prisons before, but his room in this Upper Mix prison is completely empty. What is El Chapo's prison cell actually like? Let's find out. While in the maximum security prison of Puente Grande in Mexico, El Chapo would hold parties in his cell and conduct business out of the facility. Clearly, this was not a place that took the threats El Chapo posed seriously. Even though he was living a lavish life in Puente Grande, El Chapo wanted to go back to the no-rules lifestyle he enjoyed out of prison. To return to the outside world, El Chapo snuck out of Puente Grande in a laundry basket in 2001. El Chapo continued his reign of chaos and narcotics trafficking for 2014. This time, he was sent to Altiplano prison, which was supposedly Altiplano. El Chapo not allowed to have clothes and had limited access to the outside world and his cartel. So, he escaped the second time. This time, El Chapo had his associates dig a tunnel under the prison and create an opening in the shower floor of his cell. By the time the guards realized what was happening, El Chapo had descended down a ladder, left on a motorcycle that was waiting for him in the tunnel, and rode it a mile underground to a house on the outskirts of the prison where he made his escape. After he was captured the third and final time in a heroic raid by Mexican authorities in 2015, El Chapo would be locked up for good. The Mexican government had 24-hour guard detail and surveillance on Chapo, and the worst possible outcome for the drug lord occurred. He was informed that he would be extradited to the United States. El Chapo was flown to the U.S., where he was placed in a maximum security prison to await trial. He was tried and found guilty on 10 counts for narcotics trafficking, use of firearms and drug crimes, and money laundering. On July 19th, 2019, El Chapo was moved to his current residence at Administrative Maximum U.S. Penitentiary, or ADX, in Florence, Colorado. He was sentenced to life plus 30 years in prison. Now he spends 23 hours a day in his breakout-proof cell. But what is the cell like? What is available for El Chapo to do with capacity tank? The short answer is not much. ADX Florence is known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. The prison itself opened in 1994. Has never escaped from ADX Florence because of its design and the preventative measures put in place at its inception. One main reason that no successful escapes have occurred is because of the cells. El Chapo's cell is located in one of the most secure wings of the prison, and he isn't anything but comfortable. The room itself is 7 feet by 12 feet and made out of reinforced concrete walls, ceiling, and floor. There's not one, but 2 doors that separate the cell from the hallways. The entryway that El Chapo stares at while locked in his cell is made of an interior barred door, with a solid metal outer door just behind it. This reinforces the concept, making sure El Chapo knows he's stuck in his cell, except for the 1 hour of recreation he gets each day. El Chapo doesn't even get to leave his cell to eat. All the food is delivered through the barred inner door before the outer door is sealed again. There's a solid concrete table that El Chapo can sit at. Although it's barely big enough to put the food tray on, the table doubles as a desk with a stool, both of which are made of solid concrete and built into the cell infrastructure. There is no way for him to move anything around. Almost everything in the cell is made of rock and stone. Radio and a black and white television set that's rewarded with good video. The programming on the TV is recreational, religious, and educational. So El Chapo will not be seeing any of the documentaries or series on streaming services that have recently been made about his life. The cell contains a concrete slab on which a thin mattress rests. This is El Chapo's bed. It's not made to be comfortable. That bed, like everything else, is concrete and mounted onto the wall. It's just big enough for him to lay on. However, the size does not allow El Chapo to stretch out in any meaningful way. There is a single window in El Chapo's cell. It's 42 inches tall and 4 inches wide, so it's more of a slit in the concrete than an actual window. The opening provides a scenic view of the dreary gray prison and a small sliver of sky. The window is designed designed this way so that the prisoners at ADX Florence will never know exactly what part of the prison they're in. That way, there is no chance of them informing their associates where to find them if a breakout ever occurs. The cells themselves are soundproof, so that inmates can't communicate with anyone else in the prison. Also keeps the inmates from knowing when the guards are passing or when people are in the facility at any given time. The design of the cells makes sure that tapping or banging on the walls will not create any sound outside of the room. This is to prevent prisoners from communicating with one another using Morse code. You might be wondering where El Chapo goes to the bathroom if he's not let out of his cell for 23 hours a day. The toilet and shower are built right into the floor and walls of the cell. This allows El Chapo to do his business and maintain his hygiene without having to be transferred to a shower or bathroom facility. The shower is on a timer to prevent any flooding of the cell. This was also done to make sure the prisoners couldn't drown themselves. There is a single light in El Chapo's cell which is controlled by the guards. In fact, the electricity to all appliances in the cell is controlled by the guards. So if it's lights out, El Chapo only has the option of staring into the silent blackness all around him. There's no TV, radio, or lights, and the guards turn off the power. Obviously, no phones are allowed in the cell, but if El Chapo behaves, eventually he will be allowed outside visitors. He will be separated from anyone who visits by a thick glass window. It seems like the prison cell is slowly getting to El Chapo. He was used to a life of luxury, being able to do whatever he wanted. There are no pardons in ADX Florence. There is no way for El Chapo to contact other members of his cartel. He is stuck there, just like all the fixtures in the cell itself. El Chapo has even said that being in the cell at ADX Florence has been torture and the most inhumane situation I've lived in my entire life. It has been physical, emotional, and mental torture. That being said, some human rights organizations such as Amnesty International have questioned the methods and design of ADX Florence. They state that putting mentally unstable prisoners in such an isolated situation borders on mental torture. Everyone knows that prisons are not supposed to be nice, comfortable places, but being borderline torture chambers does bring the methods of ADX Florence into question. So, we know that El Chapo's prison cell is not the nicest place to spend a life sentence, but he has committed terrible crimes in flesh, and since he's confined to a cell without any human contact for 23 hours a day, you might ask, what does El Chapo do for the 1 hour he's let out of his concrete cage? During this 1 hour of recreation, El Chapo is brought out of his cell and escorted to a concrete pit that is reminiscent of an empty swimming pool. The pit is designed to let El Chapo walk around with 3 guards escorting him. To be fair, he can't get very far. He can walk about 10 steps in a straight line back and forth, or 30 steps in a circle. Either way, El Chapo is not going very long distances. And after the hour passes, it gets pretty monotonous. The exercise cage was purposefully sunk into the ground so that prisoners would not be able to identify their exact location within ADX Florence during recreation time. Everything at the prison was designed to prevent escape.
That was round 10. That's my first time trying it, guys.
No idea where he's located within the prison while in his cell or at the exercise cage. But if he